Shout out to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Hey guys, Spirit of the Law here. In this video, we're going to be taking an early in-depth look at one of the new Mountain Royals DLC civilizations, the Georgians. It's always a little risky breaking down a civ just before it's released, as usually there's some sort of balance tweak in the first month or two. So if you're watching this down the road, there may be some changes, and if there are, I'll leave a pinned comment below highlighting anything significant. Now, looking at the Georgians, they're described as a defensive and cavalry civilization, with a bit of emphasis on monks as well. If you enjoy a very defensive playstyle that lets you attack from a position of strength back home, Georgians might be right up your alley, and I consider them the easier of the two new DLC civs to pick up. That said, their bonuses have to be used quite intentionally, and a major goal here is to help you formulate a clear game plan if this is a civilization you're looking to try. Let's check them out. Starting off, their team bonus is that their buildings take 50% fewer resources to repair, somehow without increasing the risk of buildings spontaneously collapsing. Castles are probably the major beneficiary here, and with 10 repairing villagers, you'll save roughly 100 to 150 stone per minute, for example, depending on upgrades. Whether it's holding against a castle-age siege push or fighting off an aggressive Persian or Cuman town center drop, your whole team is in a better position when defending without having to consciously use this bonus or do anything different than usual. Moving on to their proper civ bonuses, the first is they start with a free mule cart, which has a base value of 20 food and 100 wood, but they lose 50 of their starting food. The mule cart is of course the Georgian and Armenians' unique camp that collects wood, gold, stone, and deer or boar. Now, while 50 food is technically a good deal on paper, in practice it makes the first couple of minutes a little tight on food. You need to force drop off food when you hit 6 villagers, and personally I like to put the first 8 on sheep to help things stabilize more long term and get out of the force drop off cycle. Remember, you don't really need wood as early, since you have your mule cart for a future wood camp already, and it even doubles as a bit slower second scout in the early game, or you can just send it to a wood line to keep things simple. Just keep in mind you can't put the mule cart on berries, and you need a second Dark Age building to advance, so you still need a mill at some point. But simply having access to the mule cart is a bit of a civ bonus all on its own. In some early days testing, I found its automatic following of your lumberjacks adds about 5 to a little under 10% to your lumberjack efficiency, depending on how often you refresh your lumber camps. The main disadvantage worth highlighting is simply that its lower HP and armor make it more vulnerable to raids than a regular camp, though you can always garrison it in the town center or keep it fully walled in. Next up is your primary mid to late game bonus, which is Fortified Churches replacing your monastery and giving villagers a plus 10% work rate within a 10 tile range. This gives not just protection for villagers to garrison inside, comparable in strength and in its arrow mechanic to a town center, but also a production building for monks, and the villager collection bonus means they also pay for themselves after a few minutes, if used throughout your town. At the moment, they cost 200 wood, making them very tempting to build before additional town centers, though I could see that cost being adjusted down the road. At some point, the default game plan should be to have one in range of basically everything in your town, or build one with each new colony of villagers you send out, giving both protection to them and your late game economy bonus. While it doesn't passively fire arrows when ungarrisoned and requires villagers inside, keep in mind putting a relic in one will allow it to fire an arrow up to its maximum of 5. I'm a little unsure of how exactly the devs explain this, and if the relic just picks up the bow sitting by the wall, but however it works, it means there's some value in picking which fortified church you want to put relics into. Just keep in mind the building does have a minimum range, so you'll need a university and murder holes if you want to prevent opponents' knights or villagers from rushing them down. Still, it's hard to overemphasize how important this building is to the Georgian playstyle, as it's not only your late game eco bonus, but also quite possibly your best defensive bonus as well, giving your villagers, if nothing else, a place to hide until your army can arrive and deal with any raiding. Their next bonus is another defensive one, this time giving them reduced bonus damage when their units or buildings are up on a hill. Again, this is great for castles, and also means positioning your units above your opponents gives very one-sided fights, dealing effectively twice as much damage per attack to an identical unit downhill as they're receiving back. Of course, you generally want to get hill advantages anyway, but just make extra sure the center of any castle you build is on even a small hill if you can, where even a one-tile hill counts as long as it's right in the middle. And finally, their last bonus is their main military one, which is their cavalry slowly heal HP, speeding up with each age so that generally a cavalry unit at any point will take roughly 5 or 6 minutes to recover from half its health. This helps almost immediately, giving you self-healing scouts, and synergizes perfectly as well with knights or even late-game hussar raiding. Again, it complements a very defensive and cautious playstyle, as you can run around the map taking small fights here and there before retreating back to your base or on a hilltop to heal. On the flip side, it can make you a little predictable though, as if you're not using cavalry, you're kind of missing out on your main military bonus. So that's the Georgians' bonuses, and already you can see the theme of defensiveness coming through quite a few times, with a nice cavalry bonus thrown in as well. While I mentioned their first few minutes can be tricky with forced dropping off food, given the free mule cart's total savings, I found they're actually quite easy to play aggressively in feudal with a very fast uptime, playing perfectly into scouts. In fact, it's tempting to just play them as a scout in Knight Civilization, going straight through to Cavalier, though unfortunately they are missing Paladin. Maybe to partly offset that, you have a second very good cavalry option in the mid to late game with their unique unit, which we'll take a look at now, called the Monaspa. Side by side with a knight, you might think they have a longer range weapon like a step lancer, but that's just cosmetic, and in fact their stats at first glance are very similar to a knight, a little more tilted maybe toward attack over HP, but having one extra melee armor to offset that. There's no question they're a little weaker to archers on an individual basis, but you also have to consider their cost, saving a considerable 30 gold over the generic knight line. Sometimes these sorts of cavalry units at the castle can get written off simply for the fact that it's much easier to mass knights from stables than build castles and then wait for unique units to be created. But the Monaspa actually has a very fast 11-second training time. Contrast that with the Lightus or Cataphract at 20 seconds or the Centurion's 24, and the Monaspa really stands out, being produced from one castle at almost the same speed as knights from 3 stables, while then also being much cheaper on gold. They don't even seem to give up that much in strength either, as one-on-one, a Monaspa beats a knight 2 attacks sooner, while having the same food cost and costing 45 instead of 75 gold. Upgrading in Imperial Age is a bigger investment though, costing 700 food and 400 gold more than a Cavalier, and there's no way around it, that is a major drawback. Again though, stats-wise, it holds up with a Georgian Cavalier and win one-on-one, while being individually cheaper and surprisingly easy to mass. On top of this, it also has a special effect, gaining +1 attack for every 5 nearby Monaspas or Knightline units, to a maximum of +4 when 20 other units are nearby. That means the larger the fight, the more you can snowball, with better results in 30 versus 30 than 10 versus 10 for example. They can even beat fully upgraded paladins on a large scale while losing one-on-one. So altogether, you're getting great gold value in a unit that can be added easily to an already established army of knights you mass in early Castle Age while still getting their special attack benefit. Throw in their self-healing as well as the fact that they also move slightly faster than the knight line, and you're not even slowing down your existing army like you would with say Boyars. Arbalesters are probably the main thing regular Cavaliers seem better against, but even in that case, the difference isn't very pronounced at 28 versus 35 shots. And keep in mind the Monaspa can also defeat Arbalesters in 2 attacks if you have 20 nearby units pumping them up, or 3 attacks regularly, compared to the Cavalier's 4 attacks. So I'd argue the Monaspa can even be better against archers in some cases than the Cavalier anyway. Also at the castle, moving on to their unique techs, the first is Savon Towers. This gives +2 attack to all of your defensive buildings, and allows towers to fire arrows that pierce through multiple units. There's no question it looks pretty impressive in the scenario editor, where it's easy to oversell by packing units tightly together and attacking the units in the middle or toward the back of the group. Unfortunately, towers usually target units closest to them by default, so even when bunched up, the effect is less impressive in real situations. Still, it's quite inexpensive and gives a decent benefit to town centers, castles, and fortified churches to help them keep pace with enemy armor. So you're still getting quite a bit of use out of it even if you're not making towers, but of course you get an extra benefit if you are. Their other unique tech lets cavalry take up 15% less population space. Of course, there's plenty of situations where you might hit your pop limit, from team games to 1v1s spamming hussars, though the large food cost means I wouldn't rush for it until actually hitting your pop cap. But there's clearly some synergy here, especially with their unique unit, which gets pumped up in large numbers. At the same time, they have a lot more going on than just cavalry, and it turns out they have a pretty flexible tech tree overall. In fact, let's take a look at that now, starting with the archers. Here, you're missing a number of things, including Arbalaster, Thumbring, and the final armor upgrade. While Castle Age crossbows start out fine, they hit a bit of a dead end after that point, and the Elite Skirmisher is also just okay. The Cavalry Archer, though, is worth highlighting, as maybe surprisingly it benefits from the Cavalry HP regeneration bonus, which I think can go under the radar. It then also benefits from the unique tech, letting Cavalry take up less population space, as well as, of course, the defensive hill bonus. The Hand Cannoneer is also a nice option against all of the halberdiers your cavalry will probably run into, and I'd say it's a respectable B for the archery range when it's all put together. Next up, for infantry, the barracks is fully upgraded, and after throwing in your hill advantage and great late game economy, it's maybe a little above average at a B+. Infantry isn't, of course, their main focus, but in any situation calling for champion or halberdier as a filler or counter unit, there's really nothing holding it back, which is something that might come in handy against a very good camel civilization, for example. Moving on to cavalry, this is their main focus, of course, with a lot of wood savings from the free mule cart, self-healing cavalry, great value from their unique unit, a strong potential farming economy that's hard to raid, plus the unique tech freeing up more cavalry pop space. You have to consciously play into their advantages, more so than other cavalry civs like Slavs or Franks, who can sometimes feel like they have everything happen more passively. I'd still give the Georgians an A potential for cavalry though, assuming you're playing into their bonuses and embrace their unique unit. Next up, for siege, again, it's actually really good, having siege engineers and everything except bombard cannon. While there isn't a direct bonus here, cavalry can sometimes use the extra help against buildings or something anti-infantry, which the Siege Workshop provides. I feel like it's a very solid B+ here, partly making up for having a slightly weaker archery range. Moving on to the Navy, unfortunately, the repair bonus only works on buildings, as it would be kind of useful for boats to repair with only half the usual wood. Without that, there isn't really a strict naval bonus, though the starting mule cart makes it fairly easy to get a quick uptime, and their fortified churches make their economy strong with really any strategy. I don't love the lack of most Imperial upgrades of the dock, though galleons with bracer and fast fire ships are there. I'd say it's an A- early for their strong jump into the game, turning into a B- late game for a respectable but not top tier B on water. Taking a quick look at the monks, you'll certainly have an abundance of churches if you're playing to their strongest eco bonus. Atonement and Illumination are both useful and unfortunately missing, but I still like their monks, and when used in combination with their fortified church to hide in, I think they have a lot of potential with forward aggressive monk play, so I'd give them an A-. Depending on the amount you're willing to micro your monks jumping in and out of buildings, I think they could easily be among the most annoying to play against, especially with melee units. Moving on to defenses, the usefulness of fortified churches really can't be overstated, while Georgians also take less damage on hills, cheaper repairing, and have a unique tech for +2 damage on all your defensive buildings. Even for the fortified churches alone, if you love playing defensive booming games, you're gonna like Georgians, there's no question about it. I'd go as far as say they're an A+ here, and in fact, one of my first thoughts playing the Civ is if you like staying back and playing things safe, Georgians are the Civ for you. And finally, for their trash units, that is, units that don't cost gold, the Elite Skirmisher lacks a bit of armor, but other than that, you have fully upgraded Halberdier and Hussar, the latter of which can even take up less population space after a unique tech. Fortified churches also mean you're getting even more pop value out of your villagers as well. Plus, the unique unit is also pretty reasonable in its gold cost, while being able to heal. So I think you can make your gold last a little longer than usual to begin with. I'd give them an A in Trash Wars, and as long as you're using churches to protect and boost your economy, you should overpower almost any other civilization's late game eco bonus when it's all put together. But to give some final thoughts, Georgians really do exactly what they say, as defensive and cavalry focused. Clearly, the path of least resistance is scouts into knights, leading into either their unique unit or some other army combination probably based around cavalry. With that said, their crossbows are actually fine until Imperial Age, and they even have some fun potential with monks in siege or even infantry, so I wouldn't say they're totally locked into cavalry every game. They're definitely a civ where being comfortable with force dropping off goes a long way in making their start feel smoother, and I'd say more advanced players are going to be able to better optimize the early mule cart and all of its build order implications. As I mentioned a few times though, you're really going to love this civ if you like to play defensively, and can get over the usual stigma against unique cavalry units being slow to produce. Personally, I love their cavalry healing bonus, letting you raid and then fall back to focus on your economy. It's an elegant and sophisticated way of fighting, to spar and joust, but then return to the comfort of your villa to heal up and discuss the day's events. It reminds me of my newest side business venture, Spirit of the Land, where only the classiest gentlemen and ladies attend to play the most exclusive Age of Empires land games. It even has a great website thanks to this video's sponsor, Squarespace. Where websites traditionally take a lot of technical knowledge to set up and maintain, Squarespace is a tool to help you create a professional-looking site within minutes. If you're a blogger, own a small business, or chasing the passive income dream of opening an online store, but have no idea how to make a functional website from scratch, Squarespace has you covered with templates and tools to help you out, simplifying the website building process. Squarespace even has great third-party extensions to handle things like inventory, taxes, shipping, and scheduling to accommodate your specific needs. Go to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/spiritofthelaw to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. So hopefully this leaves you excited to try Georgians, and the video gave you a few ideas of what to focus on. Probably the biggest things to pay attention to are their slightly unusual start, needing extra emphasis on food, the importance of their fortified churches, and their, at least at the moment, excellent value on their unique unit. That'll do it for this one though. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you next time.